HBO boxing numbers continue to go down and get beat by Showtime boxing. Stay tuned. Boxing Ego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the Super Chat channel donations, the Venmo donations, and the Patreon family. We working. Also, if you like to go to the Box Fan Expo this weekend, Canelo versus Golovkin Day, September 15th, then purchase tickets. Link in the description. Helps the channel. Listen, I gotta make this video. You know, no one else wants to talk about it. Leave it to your boy Ego, new media, to talk about this stuff. Now, HBO boxing has been trending downward, right? Their programming, it looks like they're phasing out of boxing, kind of focusing on their shows or Ballers or something, Game of Thrones, I'm not sure. Insecure. But as far as boxing programming, we're getting less and less as boxing fans, right? And this is surprising because HBO boxing has always been the benchmark and staple for premium boxing, right? Examples of this, they did that budget cut a couple years ago and they were putting fights like Terrence Crawford versus Victor Postal on pay-per-view. Now it looks like they're not willing to pick up certain fights like Kovalev versus Alvarez 2, at least at the moment. They don't want to, because they know if Kovalev loses again, then that doesn't benefit them. So do they want to risk purchasing that fight and putting on their network and then having Kovalev get knocked out again or something, and then Eliter Alvarez goes back to Al Heyman and Showtime? So these are risks that they're not willing to take, you know? And now Superfly 3 triple header just happened, and the numbers are terrible. The numbers are terrible. Listen, the main event for Superfly 3, right? It was Juan Francisco El Gallo Estrada versus Felipe Orukuta or something, and it averaged 298,000 viewers, and it peaked at 329,000. These are horrendous numbers for HBO boxing. You have to consider, I don't know off the top of my head, but HBO boxing has upwards of, I don't know, 10 million to 17 million subscribers. This is a big network, and this is the level of interest that their main event had. Now, this is how you know it's bad, and I'm going to tell you something new media style that they're not willing. You might see articles, and they're rating the peak. They're telling you the peak. Okay, let me tell you the difference. There's averages and there's peaks. Average is more of a sustained amount of viewers through the duration, right? Peak is like at one given time at like 7:33, the most people that were watching this event, like let's say the action picked up in round 3, someone's flipping the channel. These are the maximum amount of eyes that this broadcast had at one given time. That's basically a short-term way of thinking of it. So you'll notice what writers do. For certain events, when they're trying to make it sound better, they will write the peak amount of viewers. So it looks like oh wow, it peaked at this, because that's always going to be the higher number than the average. You know, the peak is just the maximum, the climax of how many people were. So you'll notice that. And what I noticed with this particular fight, Superfly 3, the numbers are so terrible that you have articles that are telling you the peak viewership, and they're not even giving you the peak viewership for the main event. So that's a bit tricky. So this was a triple header. The second fight, the co-main event, actually did better viewership than the main event, which is rare. That would be like Charles Martin, and this is on the same night I was at that fight. That would be like Charles Martin versus Adam Kanowski doing better than Danny Garcia and Showtime Shawn Porter. That's typically a problem, because in rare cases, maybe there might be a co-main event where people are more excited to see the co-main event. Like, let's say Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo. there might have been some people, because they had a very, very good co-main event that really should have been or could have been a main event, but Al Heyman blessed us boxing fans and put it all on one card. But Mayweather versus Canelo, there may have been some people who liked the co-main event better, which was Danny Garcia versus Lucas Matisse. You know, just depending on whose career you followed, and like, you know, maybe people thought, because Mayweather's Mayweather, he's hard to beat, so some people might have liked the intrigue and the competitiveness on paper of Matisse versus Danny Garcia. Matisse knockout artist, Danny Garcia knockout power at 140, etc. Right? But more often than not, the reason the main event is the main event is because it generates the most interest. Otherwise, why wouldn't you put your co-main event as the main event if it's more anticipated? So this is bad when you have to have writers use the co-main event and the numbers from the co-main event and then put the Superfly triple header peaked at this number, and they're not even giving you the numbers from the main event. They're giving you the numbers from the co-main event. And for some odd reason, the co-main event actually generated higher numbers than the main event. This Superfly, listen, I knew it was going to be bad based on the date. You're competing against Danny Garcia, Shawn Porter, which was a far better main event, far better card, and it was at the Barclays. That's one thing. In fighting combat sports, you're competing against Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till, which is a fight. I'm not even as big of a UFC fan, but I do, you know, I enjoy a good UFC match too. And I was really looking forward to that particular fight. Shout out to T Wood on his victory. You guys got to stop doubting that man. And I was looking forward to that too, which in my opinion, those two fights, Danny Garcia, Shawn Porter, and Darren Till versus Tyron Woodley, are far greater than any of the matchups on Superfly. Superfly, it's like they're just going off of the name, you know, because the first two Superflies were really good. I really enjoyed them. But it reminds me of a movie sequel. You ever see a movie where the first two like installments of the movie, very good, and then it starts getting to the third and fourth, and you're like, all right, this shit is getting weird. Like, look at like Transformers. You know, I wasn't really feeling some of the Transformers with Mark Wahlberg and shit. The first ones were good and we liked it, and Bumblebee and all that. Sam, you do not know. You know, those were good. It's Saw movies, same thing. At first, the Saw movies were good, and then they start getting like real kind of low budget and campy. I want to play a game. Jigsaw was dying of AIDS or some shit, and he was still trying to play a game. Like, come on. I want to play a game. You've spent your life disrespecting your parents. Now, the disrespect has been done to you. Like, how you dying of AIDS trying to play games still? Like, stop it. You know, this is what the Superfly reminded me of. It was a triple header, and people just weren't checking for it. You lost so much star power. Like, it's not even like it was really worthy of being called Superfly, in my opinion, because this doesn't live up to the expectations set forth by Superfly 1 and 2. You know, it reminds me of, if you guys, all my hood movie fans, if you watch the first Belly and then you watch the Belly with Game, like, it's like this wasn't even a sequel to Belly. It should have been something else. They just used the name Belly. They used the name Belly just to try to lure people in, because it didn't really coincide with the Hype Williams Belly with Nas and DMX and shit, right? This didn't really feel, to me, I'm just being perfectly honest, this didn't feel like a Superfly. You had Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, who they put on the Canelo Triple G2 card, so he wasn't going to be on the Superfly card, right, in his comeback. And he had a lot of star power, a lot of marketing promotion behind him. He's not on here. You had Sor Rungvisai, he was not on the card, right? He's a champion, not on the card, so he was wherever in Thailand eating rat. And instead of making Sor Rungvisai versus Juan Francisco Gallo Estrada rematch, which was a very good first fight, they put Estrada in there with, you know, this other dude. It just, I mean, I still don't even know who won all the bouts. You know what I mean? It just, people weren't checking for this. And then now you have Donnie Nietes and Aston Pasilike or some, I don't even know the dude's name. And that was a co-main event, and it did better, and it peaked higher than the main event. This card was all over the place. It wasn't promoted right, and it really didn't contain the fights to put it in the same breath as the first two. Because even when Chocolatito wasn't on the Superfly 2 card, the main event was really good. You know, Estrada versus Rungvisai. So you should have did a rematch. The other person is Inoue or Inoue. He's no longer in the division, and he's in the World Boxing Super Series. So he's no longer a participant. So it's like, where's the star power for this particular card, especially when you put it on the same night, competing with much greater main events and much greater cards in general? Bad idea. Kind of reminds me of DAZN, Thomas Delorme, Jesse Vargas on the same night as Conor McGregor. It's not gonna, in my opinion, it's not gonna be able to compete with that, you know? So the Superfly 3 definitely, in my opinion, flopped. HBO, I don't know if they're getting out of the boxing business entirely. I heard Gennady Golovkin's contract is officially over after the Canelo fight, so he has an opportunity to renegotiate, stay on the network or leave. He has that option. We have to see, you know, but someone, Canelo or Triple G, somebody got to take a loss, so that's going to hurt HBO. And, you know, it's just, this is a bad sign. And I tried telling you guys, I once again stood on the front line, new media style. I'm saying, oh, you know, Premier Boxing Champs and Showtime, you know, they've been stepping up. They've been putting on some good fight. And then people say, oh, you're an Al Heyman dick rider and this and that. And now you see it. Now, where are those same people? Please show up in the comment section now. You know, I based this off of the trends that I seen. And HBO has been trending down for years now. Like I said, we got Canelo Golovkin, one installment of HBO 24/7. No HBO face-off with Max Kellerman. Andre Ward he's doing a commentating deal on ESPN, so I don't know if he is allowed to work on ESPN and HBO as a commentator. I don't know that. One of the telecasts recently, I didn't even see Roy Jones there for whatever reason, right? It's just all over the place. And then you look at HBO's fights this year, Lucas Matisse, he fought against Tyram Kawam and Jorge Linares versus Mercita Hesta. They also came back later this year and fought, and they were in much better fights, but they weren't on HBO. Jorge Linares fought Lomachenko, which was a really good fight. But guess what? It was on a top-ranked card, top-ranked Golden Boy on ESPN. So you didn't even get Linares' best fight this year. Same thing with Lucas Matisse. Before he retired, he fought against Manny Pacquiao later in the year, and that was on ESPN Plus. You know, so HBO, you're getting a couple guys, but they're not even getting them in the best fight. Jaime Munguia, right? He fought against Liam Smith on regular HBO. He's about to fight again on the Canelo Triple G2 pay-per-view against Brandon Cook, but that's a pay-per-view. They're just not putting on the caliber fights. One of the best fights, their HBO fighter, Sergey Kovalev, lost to a Showtime fighter. You know, Al Heyman guy, Eliter Alvarez. Now they don't want to pick it up, the rematch necessarily. Kovalev fought Igor Mikhelkin. You know, so it's just like, who's gonna keep HBO afloat right now during this hard time? Kovalev doesn't look the same. Andre Ward retired because you disrespected him, you know, so he's doing the Contender, Creed 2, got a gig with ESPN, gonna be at the Box Fan Expo, you know, he's enjoying life, clean cut. He didn't take care of that brother, so he left, you know, or not left, but he left the game, right? It's just, what is HBO gonna do? And this is the second time in recent memory. See, I'm telling you all facts. This is the second time in recent memory where HBO Boxing is getting beat by Showtime, which used to never happen. I remember, this how good my memory is. I remember Ruslan Provodnikov versus John Molina Jr. That was a very good main event, and it had Demetrius Andre versus Willie Nelson as a co-main event, and another fight. That was competing with an HBO fight the same day. And HBO, I don't think the HBO fight was necessarily better, and it still did better numbers, still did better viewership. Fast forward to the future, this is the second time, at least in recent memory, where there's dueling telecasts on Showtime and dueling telecasts on HBO at the same time simultaneously, and HBO is getting beat by Showtime, which used to never happen, you know. And now they're using the ratings for the co-main event to kind of use it as the headliner because they know the main event numbers were so atrocious and they know it flopped. So now they're trying to use the better co-main event numbers and say, oh, Superfly 3 peaked at 421,000. Since when do we use the co-main events numbers and that represents the whole entire card more so than the main event? Why don't you plaster the main event numbers as put that peak, you know? But they didn't want to because they know the peak was only 329,000. So they put 421,000, which is the number of the co-main event, right? And they definitely didn't want to put the average as the headliner because the average for the main event was only 298,000. Again, they were competing with Tyron Woodley and Darren Till, and they were competing with Danny Garcia, Shawn Porter, but this has happened in the past. I can think of a couple of times. Canelo, he fought on Showtime at the time against Josecito Lopez on the same night as the HBO pay-per-view with Sergio Martinez and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And HBO's numbers were never this bad, even when they had dueling telecasts, because this has happened a few times. Showtime, it peaked, Danny Garcia and Shawn Porter peaked at 690,000, almost 700,000. So, you know, closer to a million. And the average was 619,000 viewers, right? This is crazy. These are not good numbers, you know. And then on top of that, they were competing with the UFC, and Showtime still did just under 700,000, 690,000, average 619,000. You guys seen the graphic on the screen. So HBO Boxing, I don't know where their head's at, but I mean, part of it is you got to be able to coexist. And with Bob Arum taking all his top ranked fighters to ESPN and ESPN Plus, Al Heyman doing this new deal with Showtime, long-term, 3 years, and a 4-year deal with Fox and FS1. And then Eddie Hearn doing his own thing with DAZN. And then you have Frank Warren, who also did a deal with Top Rank that was just announced for ESPN. It's just like, it's looking like the end of HBO, you know, unless they join forces some kind of way with somebody else, because who's gonna carry this? You know, what's Canelo gonna do? What's Canelo's next? Canelo versus David Lemieux, Spike O'Sullivan. You know, this is gonna be the types of fights that they feed us. And to me, Golden Boy stayed loyal, or whatever you want to call it. Who does Golden Boy have? They don't have enough of a roster. Lucas Matisse retired. Frankie Gomez, I think, is a mechanic now. He just left boxing, right? Mauricio Herrera, I haven't heard from him. Jesus Soto Caras retired. Gabe Rosado, I don't think, is with Golden Boy. David Lemieux or Gary Spike O'Sullivan, one of them got to lose, and it's going to be really like almost journeyman status, crossroads status for the loser of Lemieux O'Sullivan. Kovalev got, you know, knocked down 3 times and knocked out, and he lost twice to Andre Ward. Andre Ward retired. Who does HBO have? Dimitri Bivol? You know, who's gonna spearhead HBO boxing programming? You know, like at one point they were bidding to get Anthony Joshua, but it looks like he's probably gonna do business with DAZN. He even said, "Oh, I want to be a shareholder," in a recent interview. It's just like, it's not looking good for HBO. I'd seen this coming. I told people, and they said that I was tripping. They said I was the one, oh, you're being biased, so you just love Heyman. Well, like I said, where are those same people now? New media. Make sure you smash the like button as always. Hey, comment and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.